Mike, a man burdened by grief, lived in a quiet town where life moved slowly, except in his heart, where time seemed frozen since Lily's death. Her grave had become a sanctuary for him, a place where he could still feel connected to her. But over the past few months, strange and inexplicable occurrences had unsettled him, blurring the line between sorrow and the supernatural. Fresh flowers appeared on her grave every day, no matter the weather or time. Her favorite perfume, a soft floral scent, sometimes lingered in the air, tugging at his heartstrings and raising more questions than answers. Desperate for closure or perhaps clarity, Mike decided to install a hidden camera near Lily's grave. His hands trembled as he secured the small device, camouflaged behind a neighboring tombstone. Every part of him hoped for something mundane, an explanation rooted in reality. But in the quiet hours of the night, when grief is loudest, a part of him dared to hope for something more, something beyond the veil of life and death. The first two nights yielded nothing but the gentle rustle of the wind and the occasional scurrying of nocturnal creatures. Mike reviewed the footage with a heavy heart, thinking he might be imagining it all. But on the third night, the camera captured something extraordinary. The footage began as usual, with the grave bathed in the pale light of the moon. Around midnight, the air seemed to shimmer. A faint silhouette appeared, delicate, ethereal. It moved with grace, almost floating. Mike leaned closer to the screen, his breath caught in his throat. The figure was cloaked in a faint glow, and as it neared Lily's grave, the features came into focus. It was her. Lily, as beautiful and radiant as the day he met her, knelt by the grave. She carried a bouquet of her favorite flowers, gently arranging them at the headstone. Then, with a sorrowful smile, she touched the grave and whispered words the camera couldn't record but seemed to echo in Mike's soul. The figure lingered for a moment, looking toward the camera as if she knew it was there. Her eyes, filled with love and longing, seemed to pierce through the screen. And then, just as suddenly as she appeared, she faded into the night. Mike's tears streamed uncontrollably. It wasn't just the shock of seeing her again. It was the overwhelming sense of peace and love she exuded. She wasn't haunting the grave, she was visiting him. The footage sent ripples through the world after Mike shared it with a close friend who worked in local media. Experts analyzed it, skeptics debated it, and believers saw it as proof of love transcending death. But for Mike, it wasn't about convincing anyone else. It was about understanding that love doesn't end, it transforms. After that night, the flowers and perfume stopped appearing. It was as if Lily had left him one final message: to move forward, carrying her love in his heart, but allowing himself to live again. And though the grave remained a place of rest and memory, Mike realized that Lily was no longer bound to it. She was free, and so was he. The discovery of the footage transformed Mike's grief into a mix of awe and bittersweet longing. For weeks, he revisited the video every night, feeling as if each replay brought him closer to Lily, but as much as it comforted him, it also left him restless. He needed to know if that night had been a one-time event or if there was more to uncover. One evening, after the world had quieted down and the night cloaked the town in stillness, Mike returned to the graveyard. This time, he brought more than just a camera. Armed with a notebook, a flashlight, and his most vulnerable questions, he knelt by Lily's grave, unsure if he was ready for answers. "Lily," he whispered into the night, his voice trembling. "If you can hear me, if that really was you, I need to know why. Are you trying to tell me something?" The silence that followed felt impossibly heavy. For a moment, Mike thought he was foolish to even try. But then a soft breeze stirred the air, carrying with it the faint, unmistakable scent of her perfume. His heart raced as the wind swirled around him, a tender caress that felt achingly familiar. That night, his dreams were different. He found himself in a lush meadow bathed in golden light, a place both strange and familiar. Lily stood there waiting for him. She looked just as she had in the footage, radiant, peaceful, and full of love. "Mike," she said softly, her voice carrying a warmth that filled the empty spaces in his soul. "You've been holding on to me, but I'm not here to stay. I wanted to give you a part of me to hold onto while you found your way, but now you have to let me go." Tears welled in his eyes as he reached for her, but she shook her head gently, her expression bittersweet. "This isn't goodbye. You'll always carry me in your heart, in the life we shared. But it's time for you to live again." The meadow began to dissolve, fading into light. Mike woke up with the dawn, his heart heavy but his mind clearer than it had been in months. The days that followed were different. Mike started small, visiting the coffee shop where Lily used to love sitting by the window, reconnecting with old friends, and volunteering at the community garden Lily had once cherished. Every step felt like a way of honoring her while slowly rebuilding his own life. The footage, which had once been his anchor, became less of an obsession. He stored it away, no longer needing it to feel close to her. Instead, he carried her memory and the things she loved, the values she lived by, and the quiet moments of gratitude for their time together. As the seasons changed, so did Mike. The graveyard, once a place of pain and longing, became a peaceful sanctuary. He still visited, but now it was to leave flowers for Lily, a symbol of his enduring love and the life she inspired him to embrace. Years later, when asked about the video and the mystery it had sparked, Mike would smile softly. "It wasn't about the flowers or the footprints," he would say. "It was about love, and love, I've learned, is never really gone. It just changes form." And with that, Mike carried Lily's light forward, weaving her memory into the story of a life lived fully, a life she would have been proud of. As Mike continued to rebuild his life, the story of Lily's grave and the miraculous footage never quite faded from the collective memory of his small town where the world. While Mike had found his peace, others remained captivated by the mystery, and questions about the nature of the afterlife and the bond between souls lingered in public discourse. One day, years later, Mike received an unexpected letter. It was from a woman named Claire, a researcher who specialized in unexplained phenomena. Claire's letter was warm and respectful, acknowledging Mike's journey and the deeply personal nature of his experience, but it also carried a proposal. "I've spent my career studying stories like yours," she wrote. "Most of them don't hold up to scrutiny, but yours is different. I believe there's more to uncover, not just for you, but for the world. If you're willing, I'd like to meet and explore the possibility that Lily's message might be larger than we realize." Mike was hesitant at first. He had come to terms with what had happened and didn't want to disturb the delicate balance he had found. But something about Claire's sincerity and the prospect of turning his deeply personal experience into something that could help others intrigued him. After some thought, he agreed to meet her. Claire arrived in town a few weeks later, armed with a stack of notebooks, a small team of quiet, respectful assistants, and a deep curiosity. She and Mike met at a local cafe, where she listened intently as he recounted everything: the flowers, the perfume, the footage, and his dream of Lily in the meadow. Claire's questions were thoughtful and probing, but never invasive. "What do you think Lily wanted most for you?" she asked gently, her pen hovering over her notebook. "To live," Mike replied after a moment, "to move forward, to carry her love with me, but to make a life for myself." Claire smiled. "I think that's what she wanted, too. But I also think there might be more to her story." Over the next several weeks, Claire and her team worked with Mike to piece together a larger narrative. They examined the footage again, this time with advanced technology that hadn't existed when it was first captured. They combed through records of the cemetery, interviewed locals who might have seen or heard anything unusual, and explored Lily's life in greater detail: her passions, her connections, and the legacy she left behind. What they discovered surprised everyone. Lily had been quietly helping others in the community for years in ways Mike hadn't fully realized. She had anonymously paid off medical bills for struggling families, left groceries on doorsteps during tough winters, and funded scholarships for underprivileged kids. Her acts of kindness had touched countless lives, and as Claire uncovered these stories, Mike began to see Lily's appearances at her grave in a new light. "She wasn't just visiting you," Claire suggested one evening as they sat surrounded by files and photographs. "She was reminding you and maybe the world of the power of love and selflessness. She wanted to make sure her legacy didn't fade." The findings inspired Mike to create something in Lily's honor, the Lily Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to spreading kindness and support to those in need. The foundation's mission was simple yet profound: to carry forward the spirit of compassion that Lily had embodied in her life and beyond. The story of Lily's grave, the mysterious footage, and the foundation's work captured hearts worldwide. Donations poured in, and Mike found himself at the center of a movement he never expected. For the first time since Lily's death, he felt not only a sense of purpose, but also a deep connection to her that went beyond grief. And yet, amid the whirlwind of activity, Mike never lost sight of the quiet, personal truth at the heart of it all. Lily's love had not only changed his life, but continued to ripple outward, touching the lives of countless others. On what would have been their wedding anniversary, Mike visited Lily's grave. The foundation was thriving, and his life was fuller than he could have imagined in those early days of heartbreak. He knelt by the headstone, placing a bouquet of fresh flowers, her favorite, as always. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "For everything, for reminding me of what matters most. I love you, Lily, always." As he stood to leave, a soft breeze stirred the air, carrying with it the faint, familiar scent of her perfume. Mike smiled, his heart full, knowing she was still with him, not in the grave, but in the love and kindness that now flourished in the world because of her. And in that moment, he realized something profound. While Lily's physical presence might have left, her spirit was more alive than ever, woven into the fabric of a world she had quietly made better.